I never thought the worst moment of my life would happen at a birthday party. Mine. 75 years old, surrounded by every person I had ever loved, and my own daughter, my firstborn, the child I had rocked to sleep during thunderstorms, the girl I had walked down the aisle with tears streaming down my face, looked me dead in the eyes, and called me a liar in front of everyone. But that's not even the part that broke me. The part that broke me was that for a moment, just one terrible, gut-wrenching moment, I believed she might be right. My name is Harold Eugene Mercer. People call me Harry. My grandkids call me Pop Pop, which is the greatest title any man has ever earned on this earth. I spent 38 years working at a steel mill in western Pennsylvania, raised 4 children with my late wife Dorothy, and when she passed 6 years ago from pancreatic cancer, I made a promise at her graveside that I would keep this family together no matter what it cost me. It cost me more than I ever imagined. Dorothy was the glue, I always knew that. She was the one who remembered birthdays, who mediated the arguments, who could sit my daughter Sandra down with a cup of chamomile tea and smooth out any conflict within 20 minutes. Without her, the cracks in our family started showing almost immediately, but I did my best. Lord knows I did my best. Sandra is my eldest. She's 51 now, a real estate attorney living in a brick colonial outside of Pittsburgh with her husband Glenn and their 2 teenagers. She was always the sharp one, the one who argued both sides of every debate at the dinner table just to see if she could win. Dorothy used to say Sandra came out of the womb ready to cross-examine someone. We laughed about it then. Nobody was laughing that Sunday afternoon in April. The party was held at my youngest son Richie's house, a big backyard gathering with a tent, string lights, a catered spread that his wife Melissa had been planning for 2 months. All 4 of my children were there, 12 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, neighbors, old friends from the mill, my brother Carmen who drove up from West Virginia. 25 people seated around tables decorated with old photographs of my life. It started so beautifully. Richie gave a toast that made half the room cry. My granddaughter Emma sang a song she had written for me on her guitar. My buddy from the mill, Big Lou, told a story about the time I pulled a young worker away from a dangerous machine malfunction back in 1987, a story that still gives me chills to remember. And then Sandra stood up. I smiled when she rose from her chair. I thought she was going to give a toast. Sandra always had a gift for words, and I had been looking forward to whatever she had prepared. She did not give a toast. I think, she said, her voice steady and controlled the way it gets when she's in professional mode, that since we're all here together, it's time we address something that's been ignored for too long. The backyard went quiet, that particular kind of quiet that makes the air feel heavy. Dad, she said, turning to look directly at me, I know what you did with Mom's life insurance money. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually gripped the edge of the table. Sandra, Richie started. No, she held up her hand. Everyone here deserves to know Mom left $340,000 in life insurance. Dad received that money 6 years ago, and when I asked him last month where it went, he couldn't give me a straight answer. Do you know how much is left in his accounts? She paused for effect, scanning the faces around the tables. $11,000. 25 pairs of eyes turned toward me. My son David, who is normally unreadable, looked stricken. Richie's wife Melissa covered her mouth. My grandchildren looked confused, frightened, searching the faces of the adults around them for guidance. I wasn't hiding anything, I said. My voice came out smaller than I intended. Then explain it, Dad. Explain where $329,000 went, because I've been trying to understand it for months, and the only conclusion I can reach, her voice cracked slightly, the first fracture in her composure, is that you were either manipulated by someone or you made decisions that affected all of us without ever consulting anyone. Sandra, this isn't the place, David said quietly. When is the place, David? His 80th birthday? His funeral? She was crying now, and that was the worst part, because Sandra doesn't cry easily, and seeing her cry made everyone else feel like maybe she had a point. Maybe she had earned the right to do this. Mom worked her whole life, That money was her legacy, and it's just gone. I sat there at the head of that table, 75 years old, surrounded by everyone I loved, and I felt something I had not felt since I was a boy, being scolded in front of the neighborhood, pure, naked shame. Even though I had done nothing wrong. I just didn't know how to explain it. I never was good with words the way Dorothy was, the way Sandra is. I didn't know how to stand up in front of 25 people and articulate 6 years of decisions that made complete sense to me but sounded, I realized, terrible without context. So I sat there in silence. And my silence looked like guilt. That's when the back gate opened. Nobody heard it at first over the murmuring that had started around the tables, but Richie saw it, and I watched his expression shift from distressed to confused. A woman in a gray blazer walked across the lawn carrying a leather portfolio. She was maybe 40, professional looking, and she moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had walked into difficult rooms before and was not afraid of them. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice carried across the tent. "My name is Catherine Holloway. I'm an attorney, and I believe I owe this family an explanation that Mr. Mercer has been too humble, or perhaps too private, to give himself." Sandra stared at her. "What is this?" "Your father contacted me 4 months ago," Catherine said, setting her portfolio on an empty corner of the table. "He was trying to finalize the last of the paperwork. We had been working together for nearly 5 years at that point." She looked at me with an expression I can only describe as respectful. "Harold, do I have your permission to share this?" I nodded. My throat was too tight to speak. Catherine opened her portfolio and removed several documents, passing them around the table the way a teacher distributes an assignment. "Over the past 6 years," she began, "your father has donated or directed approximately $298,000 of Dorothy Mercer's life insurance proceeds to the following: $112,000 to the Dorothy Mercer Scholarship Fund, established at the community college, where your mother took night classes in 1974 before her children were born, and she had to stop. That fund has since sent 9 first-generation students through 2-year degrees." She paused. "Your father asked the college not to publicize his name." No one spoke. $67,000 to the regional food bank, given in annual installments under the name of a shell donation account, so it could not be traced back to him. $43,000 split between 4 families in this county who lost their primary earners, men your father worked with at the mill. He helped cover mortgages, medical bills, and in one case, a funeral. She turned a page. $31,000 to his church's youth program, which now operates an after-school center that serves 200 children weekly. And the remaining amounts, approximately $45,000, spent on all of you. Christmas gatherings, college contributions for grandchildren, medical bills he quietly paid for family members who mentioned financial stress in passing and never knew where the help came from. Catherine closed the portfolio. "Your father did not tell any of you because Dorothy specifically asked him not to. There is a letter written by your mother before she passed, notarized and held in my office, in which she outlines exactly how she wanted the money used. She knew Harold would carry it out. She also knew," Catherine said, her voice gentling, "that if the children found out, they would argue about it. She wanted the money to simply do good, quietly, the way she always tried to live." Sandra had stopped breathing somewhere in the middle of that speech. I could see it. The moment the prosecutorial armor cracked completely, and what was underneath was just my daughter, who missed her mother terribly, who had been scared for years that something was wrong and hadn't known how to ask. She looked at me. "Daddy," she whispered. It was the first time she had called me that in probably 20 years. I got up from my chair. I'm not a fast mover anymore. The knees don't cooperate the way they used to, but I crossed to her in a few steps, and she met me halfway, and we held each other in the middle of that backyard, while 23 other people sat completely silent around us. I felt her shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry," she kept saying into my shoulder. "I'm so sorry, I didn't know. "I know you didn't, sweetheart," I said. "I should have told you, I should have trusted you with it." No, she pulled back and looked at me with Dorothy's eyes. She always had Dorothy's eyes. Mom was right. You did it exactly the way she would have wanted. Big Lou started clapping first. Then Richie, then everyone else, and it wasn't the polished applause of a performance. It was the raw, messy, overwhelmed kind that happens when a room full of people have just witnessed something they weren't prepared for. My great-granddaughter, who is 4 years old and had understood approximately none of what just happened, climbed into my chair, sat in my spot at the head of the table, and helped herself to a piece of my birthday cake. I laughed until I cried. Later that evening, after the tent came down and the grandkids were chasing fireflies in the yard, Sandra sat beside me on Richie's porch steps. She had the letter. Catherine had brought it, Dorothy's letter, written in her careful schoolteacher handwriting, 6 pages long. "She knew you so well," Sandra said softly, folding it back along its creases. 51 years, I said. She knew me better than I knew myself. Sandra leaned her head against my shoulder, the way she used to when she was small, and the thunder scared her. "I'm going to find those 9 scholarship students," she said. "I want to meet them." I smiled and looked out at the fireflies, and the children running through the dark toward them with open hands. Dorothy would have loved this evening. I think she planned it.